they scratch each other's backs, etc. Overall, the scene has them playing as best they can. And I think that Armando seizes on, he is such a magnanimous character so quickly that it almost covers this. And I think that, again, that if we were to jump in this and watch it straight through, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing to a large extent. But it is, not to belabor the point, such a massive hole within this story that...
Here's our hero, here's our savior, here's our Han Solo, here's our whatever. He just kind of comes out of nowhere as like the rescuer.
I mean, imagine if Armando had actually been at the facility where the apes were taken, and he's picking up the baby. Maybe the baby they've delivered was in there getting some kind of immunizations. Oh, yeah,
he's at the zoo,
and he saw them. Now, if he's seen our heroes as well, when they see him again, they realize he took care of a baby. He could be a savior to them.
Faith being around him.
And it's such a beautifully missed opportunity. And to have fun with you, his real name was Ricardo Gonzalo Pedro Montalban e Marino.
Man,
easy
I
for
want
you to
like
say.
5 names.
Me too. I'm going to name you Richard Gonzalo Pedro Montalban e Marino.
Juan Sanchez Villanova Ramirez of Spain.
Buenos
at your
dias.
service.
So,
and I'll just be Todd.
So anyway, they come down out of the trailer. There's a really bright light shown on them. They walk under a rope. When they walk under the rope, it goes dark. And I didn't know why it suddenly went dark for a second. Then we see them walk a few more feet, and the light comes back on them again. There's just a very brief moment where it goes dark. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of poor cinematography.
Poor lighting.
See, what I actually think it is, because if you look also in the background, they're walking, and there's somebody over by a cart dealing with something. I can't remember what they're doing, but they are in a harsh pool of light. And what it felt like to me, again, is that they only have so many lights, and they're going to pop pools of light, and they're going to...
they're walking through the dark spots.
They're going to insinuate that they're underneath, established lights that are doing that. And I think that they're so economical. They don't have the 10K lights to wash the area.
They're your leads.
I agree with you.
They go from light to no light to back to light again.
To have them constantly lit is also just as false as have them walking through dark pools. I mean, you don't... This room is well lit, but there's no lights on the left-hand side of it, so it will be darker over here. You're going to walk through dark spots occasionally.
So I agree and disagree with you.
So they walk through that moment. We pass a camel... And then we come across our actual extras, and there's like 10 of them-ish. Mm-hmm. Louis still carrying his veterinarian bag. And he walks by, darkness, and we go to light.
Oh, the circus
and they're light again, but they were in darkness like 2 seconds ago.
So I'm kind of by Richard's mic while I'm watching this. So if you look, this is
front light, yeah.
Let it play through.
It's coming from there.
So watch.
Dark light, lit.
That's beautifully lit.
Back to light.
But this is also, look how it's exposed here, but here it falls off. So that's probably like a 5K light that's popping that area. And I think that they literally set up what they had.
And then walk through.
And they would just walk through it. And you're shooting economically. How are you gonna make this economical? Hey guys, we have to have some nighttime shots. It's a circus. It's after hours. You know what we'll do? We'll treat it almost like they're just some service lights on. I'm sure that's what they thought. I don't disagree with you, because here's the reason it looks bad, is that usually the way you would light pools of light, you light that pool, and then you have a lesser light over here. So when they walk into it, they're still exposed and we still see them, but then they walk into the pools of light and out of it. So it's a proper exposure. Here, there's no proper exposures when they're out of the pool of light.
It's just so fascinating when you look at modern shooting, where there's television or movies, and they just have everything so well lit. Yeah. There's a light along this tent. There's a light along this tent. There's a light along over here. There's a light among these actors. There's a light over here. They brighten up the set across the board, even though it's nighttime. This era, it's like we have 3 lights, and it's nighttime, and we're just going to light what we can.
I mean, here's what
shadows everywhere, but not done well.
Here's what would have been fun in this moment. Again, this is after hours. Why couldn't you put a little fire out for them? They're all around it. And then when you kick back to the people, you simply have, with the camera that's on a dolly track ahead of it, you could put a light with somebody rolling a gel in front of it that makes it look like the flicker of light. And that would have exposed them. And that's a cheap way to do it. I don't know if they didn't think like that, if those are techniques. I don't know when those kind of kick techniques really came into prevalence. But you're right. It's a missed opportunity. It's very...
So according to Dane, what he wanted in the script is, now you deliver our next. Exterior circus night. They pass a humbler caravan on whose steps a male and female midget sit smoking.
Little person.
Armando,
wrong.
genially, Hercules, Brunhilde, it's time you are in bed. Brunhilde, coyly, we've been in bed.
Ooh.
Armando smiles a wave of goodnight, and he and Louis reach the exterior of the menagerie tent. So they didn't actually have these extras in there. They wanted a couple midgets that were kind of coyly talking about having sex. And then we jump to, within this minute, a shot of a leopard walking in a cage. The Dane wanted a dim and shadowy wheeled cages containing a jaguar, leopard, lions, tigers, and a zebra. Uncaged, a tethered baby elephant, which is actually there. The elephant is in the shot. They walk into a tent. It's relatively brightly lit. And then here's Stevie walking from left to right to greet Dixon and Armando in front of the baby elephant. And what does Stevie say? Louis, it took you so long.
Yeah. Why is she waiting on Louis? Is she not a doctor? Can she not start all this stuff on her own? Why does she have to wait for the man to show up?
Well, Sean, I don't know if you know this. She's a woman, and she can't do things on her own.
But she
Math
says,
is hard.
But she says, after your phone call, Louis says, I had to work on an excuse. Phone call. We talked about this last minute, and this is where there's a breakdown in this. Phone call. That meant after Dixon got the news that the orderly had been killed, Hassline goes to his office and calls the president. Louis goes, where? Louis goes where to get a phone call? This is 1971. You don't have a cell phone.
Right.
You have no access to a phone. Does he go into the base to get a phone call? Where does Dr. Branton go? She's got Cornelius and possibly now Zira. Where does she go to make a phone call? She goes to the circus.
I will tell you this. The pager was invented in 1921, so it is quite possible that they paged each other.
Of course.
She says phone call.
Yeah, but you make a phone call to a pager. That pager...
Of course, the pager back then was the size of the original desktop computers, and she'd be lugging around. So what you're now saying by this information of a phone call, what we needed were not only the moments at the first where we introduce Armando, but now we need the insertion of a moment where Dixon now knows shit's hitting the fan, and he's calling shit's hitting the fan. And that would then, if he were the one to call Stevie, that would send her to the compound to go check on him. And especially at the end, whatever happens, you know where to meet me. You could do that if you've inserted Armando before, and that's their safe haven. If you've done these two things, all that makes sense. But without them, it's chaos.
Stevie says, after your phone call, that meant at this era, Dixon had to be physically located somewhere.
Even a payphone, anything.
And Branton had to stop somewhere physically with a phone call and go, I can call Dixon here and get a hold of him and tell him where we're at. Now, she's at the circus, but who's she calling? She calling the base? Hey, paging Dr. Dixon. Paging Dr. Dixon. Mm-hmm. Like, there's like I got your phone call. There's this moment where these characters are in play where you're like, there's no place there by a stationary phone.
Right.
Now, I like what they're doing.
Oh, I love what they're doing.
It just doesn't...
It doesn't jive.
We needed to see those moments.
Right. You can have things happen off screen that work as long as the characters have the information to go take care of it themselves. But when you're trying to coordinate them to come to the same location at the same time to meet and rendezvous, that'd be like the end of West Side Story without all the stuff and the lovers knowing where to meet so she can see Tony being shot. Then she just shows up, and she doesn't know what's going on. You have to have a character have information to show up, and they don't have it.
And then I'm looking at what you're looking at right now. We go into Nightmare Fuel.
So we have this now moment where Stevie has revealed herself. She's there, so we assume Cornelius is there. We don't know where Zira is.
Right.
She thanks Louis for coming because her phone call is the one that he had to work on an excuse. So it implies that Louis had not pre-set up Armando to be a part of this moment. That Stevie called in peril. Louis goes, I know where to go. Go here. I'll meet you there. I'm going to now talk to Armando and explain out what's happening. And he's going, well, of course, we're going to do this thing. We still don't know where Zira is. But what's interesting is when Stevie walks across, she walks across a cage that has a mama chimp and a baby chimp.
Well, we're assuming that's a chimpanzee because that's just horrible. It looks like a clay mask that kind of melted a little bit.
I will give Janice, some type of Giannis. I'll give him some type of credit right here.
He's trying.
If you're just watching it. So, all right, let's talk about this for a second. At the beginning of the film, we saw a man in an ape suit. It was very apparent. And he goes crazy and kills Dr. Milo. And it was very apparent that it was a man in an ape mask that wasn't really a gorilla.
It's not up to par with what we've got on our featured actors.
Even in terms of the aesthetic, in terms of the gorilla. So we assumed it was this guy named Yanis Prohaska. What's his name?
Proboscis, whatever.
Hibiscus. Well, give the actor credit.
Hydrangea.
Absolutely.
So the actor is actually credited in Planet of the Apes as Heloise. Janos Prohaska specialized portraying apes on screen. We talked about him when we talked about at the beginning of the movie.
With a depressed gorilla.
With a depressed gorilla. But he's actually credited in the movie as playing Heloise, who we just now meet. We don't know that just yet because it didn't say Heloise. Well, we do. Actually, we do at the end of the minute. Say Heloise to my little friend. But if you're just watching the scene without paying attention, he literally, at this moment, looks like a real chimpanzee holding a baby chimp. But when you dive into it in this minute, look at it, you're like, that is a faceless ape.
Soulless.
Yeah.
Soulless.
The eyes, the eye holes,
They're black, yeah.
So the prosthetics they would do for so long would be simply they would glue them around the eye.
Right around the eyes.
But they would
and
black
paint
out the eye,
eyes,
almost like what they would do with the Batman masks. They don't even attempt to do that. So it's only...
Feels like a mask you pulled on, not one that you applied.
And I think it's only in tomorrow's minute when you finally see an eye behind it. And to give him some credit real quick, it looks like it is Janos, is the way that I'm seeing it, Prohaska. Died he was 54 years old when he passed away in 1974.
Yeah, right
so
after this movie, three
Probably
years later.
Heat stroke.
Heat stroke?
Probably. From wearing these damn costumes.
He had 34 acting credits, most of which are him playing Monkey. There's Giant Bird Monster, but he was always in some kind of costume, and he was known for making his own costumes.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, the dude got his work. He did his things. Man, if this is the case, then don't light the monkey's face, because first off,
don't light it from below. Don't light it from the side.
Right.
Yeah, light it straight on or something.
The facial tone of his mask is different from
color.
the baby's actual
very
facial
much
tone.
so.
And therefore, that's jarring as
Yeah,
shit.
but my attention is drawn to the baby chimp.
That is true. That
That's
does
where
work.
I watch, so I don't see him. And
Now-
if you watch his portrayal of Heloise, he stays behind.
Yes, he does.
He holds the baby up, and this moment
Kinda
where like
blocking
this is
him
my focus,
or
like
her.
he's like very subtle in terms of like I'm hiding. So
But
I can't discredit him for.
I discredit
this
the
acting
director
moment.
more.
But well, I mean,
Well, here's the
we
reason.
can't CG anything at this point.
I'm not asking for that. You could shoot a wider shot of the mother picking nits out of the hair. Okay. And we see the baby sitting in the lap, and then cut to a tighter shot of the baby. I've established mother. I don't need a 2-shot that exposes how bad the face is. The mother can mostly be in shadows. And again, I'm to give them the excuse. It's probably shot economically for the reason it is. They simply light it, they go, they do it. But it should have been shot a little bit more interestingly, and therefore we could have put him in shadow. Because it's when you finally see that face and you realize it. In fact, when you see the eyes behind it, you can almost completely see it's a mask because you can see the
gap.
eye does
Yeah,
not
you
fit.
It's not stuck to the flesh.
We're breaking these down by a minute. We can see the small
Yes.
details.
Yes.
If you're not paying attention to this, you might not have noticed it.
Or you got completely up by watching it.
So babies can't act. Babies just are babies. If they're upset, they cry and
Right.
use that for the scene. If they're cooing, you use that for the scene. This baby must have had nightmares for months after this, being held by this waxy, dead-eyed monster for a couple of days. And like, what the fuck?
I mean, that is. I mean, there's a level to where they've got an animal on set. They used the elephant a little bit earlier. They used the camel. They used the tiger. But the fact that this baby chimp is being used, kind of being held as whatever. I mean, it's not. I'm not talking like animal cruelty or like when you put an ad out, everything's humanely handled. But it was kind of like. It would have been nice to actually have that kind of moment between like actual animals.
I wonder was there a problem with finding a mother chimp?